Hello, I'm your storyteller. If you enjoy true horror stories, I'd really appreciate it if you hit that subscribe button and let me know in the comments. What's your favorite horror story topic? Now, without further ado, let's get into this week's horror stories. It started with a curiosity. Nothing more than that. A friend of mine, Danny, had been talking about the dark web for weeks. At first, I brushed it off. I was just a regular guy living a pretty boring life in a small town. But as Danny kept mentioning it, talking about things he'd seen, the kind of people he'd met, I couldn't help but wonder if I was missing out on something. So I asked him one day, "What's it really like? Is it worth checking out?" He grinned as if he had been waiting for me to ask. You can't just dive into it like regular browsing. You need the right tools, a special browser, and even then, you're only scratching the surface. He told me about the Tor network, an encrypted way to access hidden parts of the web. I'd heard whispers about it in online forums but never gave it much thought. I didn't exactly want to end up on some government watch list, but the idea of accessing something that felt forbidden intrigued me. After a few days of thinking about it, I downloaded Tor. The browser was easy to install, and I felt a little rush as I realized I was about to access something that felt secret. I'd spent most of my life on the surface web, where everything felt like it had been sanitized and curated. The deep web, as it's often called, or dark web, felt like the opposite: dark, anonymous, and unregulated. I didn't know what to expect, but I couldn't shake the excitement of stepping into this new world. At first, the dark web seemed like a quieter version of the internet. It didn't look that different, just a little less polished. I saw forums, blogs, and marketplaces that felt just like the ones on the surface web, only these places felt off, like walking into a shady back alley in a city you don't know, and realizing everyone around you is keeping secrets. I browsed a few forums, read some posts about cryptocurrencies, and scrolled through random marketplaces where you could buy almost anything. There were a few that caught my eye, like weapons, counterfeit IDs, and bizarre services. But it was all a little too much for me, so I stayed on the sidelines, exploring out of pure curiosity. That was when I found a chat room. It wasn't in any of the usual places. I didn't find it on a forum or in any common listings. It just appeared on my screen one night after I had been browsing for hours. A pop-up window appeared with a simple message: "Looking for something darker? Join us." I almost clicked away, thinking it was just a phishing attempt. But something about it intrigued me. I clicked the link. It led me into a private chat room with no registration process, no verification, just a screen filled with scrolling usernames. The chat was fast, like a live stream of messages from people all over the world. Some were in English, others in languages I couldn't understand. People were chatting about things I didn't fully comprehend at first: unusual drugs and mysterious disappearances. Then I saw a message from someone named Watcher39. "You're not here by accident. We've been waiting for you." I thought it was some kind of joke or automated message. But then I saw another post from the same user. "We know why you're here. We know who you are." My heart began to pound. I looked around the chat room, seeing dozens of new messages flying by. Some were normal, others more disturbing. People were talking about underground fight clubs, human trafficking, and bizarre rituals. But I couldn't take my eyes off of Watcher39. I had no idea how they knew who I was. I hadn't given any personal details away. I wasn't even using my real name. But the more I scrolled, the more their messages appeared and the more unsettling they became. "You want to see something real, don't you?" I wanted to leave, but my curiosity made me stay. After a few minutes of silence, another message popped up. This time it was a link. "Click this. You'll understand what we're about." I knew I shouldn't, but I couldn't help myself. I clicked the link. It took me to a private video stream. The video showed a person, a man, bound to a chair. His face was covered in blood and his eyes were wide with terror. The camera zoomed in on his face as the words, "Don't look away," flashed across the screen. I felt sick to my stomach. The man in the chair was trying to scream, but the sound was muffled by something that looked like a gag. The scene wasn't gory in the typical sense. It wasn't about the violence. It was the sense of helplessness that terrified me. Was this live, I thought to myself? Suddenly, a soft beep broke the silence. A notification from the chat room. "You're not just watching. You're part of this now." I immediately closed the tab. I tried to exit the chat room, but it wouldn't close. The messages kept coming. More people started typing, urging me to stay and to keep watching. I realized that the more I tried to leave, the more the people in the chat room seemed to demand my attention. "Run from us and you'll regret it," one message said. I had enough. I pulled the plug from my computer. My brain was in overdrive as I thought about what I had just witnessed. I felt like I had crossed a line, like I had opened a door that shouldn't have been opened. The next few days were a blur. I couldn't loose the feeling that someone was watching me. My phone started buzzing with strange messages from anonymous accounts. No real names, just disturbing, cryptic texts. I tried to block the accounts, but they just kept coming. It was like I couldn't escape. And that's when it hit me. The dark web didn't let you leave. Once you entered, you were part of it, whether you wanted to be or not. It wasn't long before I noticed someone lurking outside my apartment, just standing there, staring up at my window in the dead of night. When I tried to confront them, they disappeared before I could even get close. But the messages kept coming. Eventually, I bought a new phone and got a new number. I erased everything on my computer, and only then did the messages stop. If you or someone you know are thinking about trying the dark web, don't. I was looking for a cheap laptop. That's it. I had just started college and didn't have the money for anything brand new, so I turned to the dark web. I had used it a few times before, mostly out of curiosity, but I knew there were marketplaces where people sold secondhand electronics for way cheaper than retail. After some searching, I found a listing that seemed too good to be true. Lightly used laptop, no issues, $150. The pictures looked fine, nothing sketchy. The seller had decent reviews and the description was basic but reasonable. I messaged them. They responded instantly. "I can ship it today, no extra charge." It felt fast, but I wanted the deal, so I sent the money. 3 days later, the package arrived. The box was plain, with no return address. The laptop itself was unbranded, black, and slightly worn but functional. When I powered it on, it booted straight to a desktop. No login screen, no setup process. Just a single folder in the center of the screen that said, "Watch me." I stared at it for a long time before clicking. Inside were dozens of video files. No names, just timestamps. The most recent one was from 2 days ago. I clicked it. The footage was dark and grainy, taken from a high angle, like a security camera. At first, I couldn't tell what I was looking at. The room was small and cluttered, papers, a desk, a chair. Then I saw a man. He was sitting at the desk, facing the camera. His head was slumped forward, arms limp at his sides. He wasn't moving. He was dead. A pit formed in my stomach. I clicked another file, an older one, another dead person. Different room, different man, same setup. Camera pointed at them from above. I checked more. The same thing. Over and over. Different people, all caught in the same unmoving silence. I didn't know what I had just stumbled into, but I knew it was bad. Then I clicked the first video, the oldest one. It was the only one where the person was still alive. A man sat at a desk, facing the camera, looking visibly nervous. He kept glancing behind him, muttering something I couldn't hear. Then suddenly he leaned forward and started typing. I heard the clacking of a keyboard. Then he turned to face the camera directly. And he said, "If you're watching this, it's already too late." I slammed the laptop shut. My heart was racing. I had just bought a laptop filled with footage of people dying. Then, a notification popped up on the computer. I thought I had shut it down. I opened it back up and held the power button, but nothing happened. I looked for the battery, but it was built inside the laptop. Not knowing what to do, I looked at the notification. New video file added, it said. I didn't want to look, but I had to. I opened the notification. It opened the folder again. At the top of the list, a new video, timestamped 1 minute ago. I clicked it. The new video began to play. It showed a shot of someone walking past my house. It was hard to make out any details, but there was no mistaking what I was seeing. Someone was watching me. I quickly closed the laptop, panic rising in my chest. How did they know where I lived? I hadn't told them my address. How long had they been watching me? I opened up the messaging app and typed frantically, "What the hell is going on? Who are you?" The seller responded almost immediately. "You've seen enough. $2,000, and you'll never hear from me again." I stared at the message, my heart pounding. $2,000? Was this some sort of scam? A sick way to get money out of people by playing on their fears? Were the people in the videos even dead? Or was it all just a twisted act? I didn't know what to think, but I didn't want to find out what would happen if I didn't pay. They knew where I lived. They were already watching me, and they were clearly sick in the head. I hesitated for a moment, but fear won out. I transferred the money. Shortly after I got the message, "Good choice. You're free to go." Feeling both a wave of relief and dread wash over me. But something didn't feel right. Was this really over? Or was I just part of their game now? The sick feeling in my stomach told me it wasn't over. But for now, I am left with the nagging question. What happens when they come back for more? I had a habit of staying up late, scrolling through random parts of the internet. It was the kind of behavior I'd been indulging in for years, jumping from one weird corner of the web to another. One night, while clicking through obscure forums and videos, I came across a thread that seemed too bizarre to ignore. The title was simple: Real Crime Live Streams. It wasn't the kind of thing I would typically click on, but something about it intrigued me. The user who posted the link was anonymous, the kind of account that had no profile picture, no posts other than this one. The thread had a few dozen replies, all of them equally vague, just people asking, "Is this real?" Or, "Have you seen this?" The link led to a simple web page with no branding, just a black background and a single stream. There was no information, no description, just the live feed. I was cautious, but something in my gut told me to keep watching. The feed showed an old, dilapidated house with dim lighting. The camera was shaky, but the image was clear enough. It didn't look like a typical found footage setup. This wasn't some low-budget horror movie scene. It felt real. Too real. I sat there for a few minutes trying to make sense of it. The room on the screen looked empty, but there was a faint noise, a creaking like someone moving upstairs. I could see shadows moving around, but no one appeared on camera. I was starting to second-guess myself, but then the feed shifted. The camera zoomed in on the hallway, and for a split second I saw a figure move out of frame. Finally, some movement, I thought. The stream had a strange, ominous quality to it. It wasn't like any true crime documentary I'd watched. It wasn't sensational or staged. It felt like I was watching something raw, something that I shouldn't be seeing. Then the camera stopped. The person behind the camera, whoever they were, had left the room, and now the hallway was all quiet. I almost clicked away, ready to close the tab, but something kept me watching. I had to know what was happening next. Then the feed shifted again. This time, the camera was inside a small bedroom. There was a man on the floor. His arms were stretched out. The whole scene felt wrong. It took me a few moments to process what I was seeing. The man on the floor was definitely dead. I could feel my stomach turn as I processed the reality of it. The whole stream felt like a documentary of someone's last moments, and here I was, an unwilling viewer. The footage kept rolling, and then I noticed something strange. There was a phone beside the dead man's body. It was lit up. On the screen, a live stream was open. I was still glued to the screen, my eyes fixed on the phone. I didn't want to believe it, but the name of the live stream was something familiar to me. The Real Crime Stream. This was no accident. This was no random video. It was an active feed of someone's final moments, an event in real time, captured for some kind of sick audience. I panicked. Should I call the cops? But I didn't know where this place was. The feed had no location information, no way to trace it. The phone buzzed. I stared at the screen, waiting for the next update. Then the camera shifted again. It moved slowly, as if the person holding the camera was deliberately trying to avoid making noise. I felt my pulse quicken. The camera focused on a door at the end of the hall. I thought I saw movement. Then, suddenly the camera swung back toward the floor. The man's body was now gone. I was frozen. My eyes were glued to the screen. The feed seemed to glitch for a moment, but the next thing I saw made my blood run cold. I saw someone standing just close enough to the camera frame that he was visible. I couldn't make out the details, but I could see the figure clearly enough. A man wearing dark clothes. He didn't move for a long time, just stood in place, staring at the camera. Then he finally stepped further into the frame. "You shouldn't have watched this," he said. The words felt directed at me. I instinctively reached to close the tab, but for some reason I didn't. "You've seen too much now," the man on the screen said. I recoiled when I saw him more clearly. It was as though the feed had suddenly sharpened. He wasn't just a random stranger. His face was familiar. It was someone I knew. I couldn't believe it, but there was no denying the connection. The man on the screen had been a student at my university. We'd never spoken, but we'd seen each other around. His name, Adam, came back to me in a rush. What was happening? Why was he there doing this? Before I could process any more, the feed flickered again, and a message appeared on the screen. "You're the next one." I quickly pulled my finger away from the mouse. I didn't even want to touch it. What was happening? Was this a sick joke? Was I the target of some kind of social experiment? But then, in the bottom corner of the screen, a new name appeared under the list of viewers. It was mine. My heart pounded. The list of viewers had been anonymous. It was just a string of usernames, numbers, and symbols. I hadn't entered anything. Yet somehow my name appeared at the bottom. The message shifted again. "You've watched enough. We're coming for you." I clicked off the page immediately, but the message didn't disappear. It was still in my browser history. I went into my settings to try and delete everything, but it was as if the site had locked me in. Every time I deleted it, the message would pop back up. For hours, I couldn't escape it. And then my phone buzzed. I checked it. It was a notification from the Real Crime Stream. The message was short and to the point. "We know where you are." That was the last message I received from them. This happened only 2 weeks ago. I'm still terrified of what they might do. I tried calling the cops, but they said there wasn't much they could do since the people behind it hadn't done anything yet. And I, of course, didn't have any evidence of the live stream. I just hope he sees sense and leaves me alone.